Hi everyone. Can you believe that it's week 4 already? We're now a third of the way through the semester, and with the mid-semester break really only a few days away, I thought this would be a really great time to just do a quick little video on the multimedia presentation. Myself and the other facilitators are starting to get some really good questions about this particular assessment. So I thought that putting together a little video to answer some of these was a really great way to be able to address them so that everybody can benefit from the responses. Some of you might be wondering why you're doing a multimedia presentation, thinking about, well, how is this going to help me in the future? Why this sort of assessment? Most of you have done traditional presentations where you stood up in front of the classroom. You've had a PowerPoint or a Prezi or some other information to display, and you've talked to an audience. We're getting you to do a facilitated discussion type presentation in the workshops. So this is just yet another type of presentation, giving you some different types of skills when it comes to presenting. One of the main reasons why we chose a multimedia presentation and a site visit was it's about giving you the opportunity to see how public health principles are actually applied in the real world. You come into class and you look at the online materials and we talk about concepts like, public health values of equity and empowerment and social justice. We talk about vulnerable population groups. We talk about, the domains or spheres of public health practice, so things like public health intelligence, protection, promotion, prevention. But what does that actually look like in real life with real practitioners? So this is an opportunity for you to go out and to actually see these principles being used in practice. It's also about enabling you to engage with technology, that if you look at the competencies for your various disciplines, but also if you look more broadly at the competencies for public health practitioners, nearly all of them will talk about the ability to use information technology and to use information technology to collect information, to analyse information, but to also disseminate information as well. And some of you, depending on where you end up working, may have to engage with these technologies to, disseminate information to various population groups. So this is an opportunity for you to develop some of these skills in utilising technology. The other reason we've done this site visit and multimedia presentation is for some students who will go on to have to identify a placement where they'd like to do placement. So students in the Bachelor of Health Science, for example, really will have to start thinking about where they'd like to do their third year placement. So this is an opportunity for you to look at some of the organisations that are out there where you might like to actually undertake your placement in third year. And finally, I just want to touch base on the subject learning outcomes. So this subject and the assessments are all leading you towards achieving these particular outcomes. And this assessment, in this assessment, you'll be working towards achieving all of these. So that is that, looking at and critically analysing concepts or values or strategies relating to public health practice. And part of you going out and engaging with organisations is being able to identify what are the values, what are the principles that are being, or the strategies that are being used by these organisations, what's perhaps missing. So being quite critical about what you're seeing. In this subject, we expect that by the end of it, you'll be able to outline the often conflicting roles and interests held by various stakeholders. And so part of this assessment is you engaging with a stakeholder or stakeholders in public health activities. And there may be, these organisations will no doubt be working with other stakeholders. And so that might be something that you can talk about in your presentation. Who are these stakeholders? What role do they play? It's also about being able to critically articulate the applicability of various strategies engaged in by public health practitioners. So looking at what are the strategies that these organisations are using And, you know, are these perhaps the right strategies? How were they implementing these strategies? How did they decide what strategies that they were using? So again, being a bit critical about the work that these organisations are doing. And then finally, being able to examine the limits of public health practice in regards to working with vulnerable groups. So one of the things that you'll need to do in this assessment is to look at the limitations of this organisation and the work that they're doing. So paying attention to what they're doing really well, perhaps where are some gaps and why might those particular gaps exist. So all of the assessments in this subject are about you working towards achieving these particular learning outcomes. And this is, as you can see in this assessment, you're working towards all of these. Okay, so we've had a number of students asking us about what constitutes a site visit. And I guess I see it as there's potentially three ways you can do this. One is to actually go and visit an organisation in person. You know, there are lots of organisations that have a physical site that you can go to and visit and engage with that site. So looking at what happens within the four walls, but also paying attention to what's happening outside of those physical sites as well, because that can be just as important in terms of you know, people accessing that, particularly vulnerable people. For some organisations, they don't necessarily have a physical office, but they certainly have a web presence or an electronic site. So there's no reason why you couldn't engage with those organisations. And then there's a combination. Lots of organisations have both a physical and an electronic site. So the site visit isn't just limited by just physically visiting a venue. You could use a combination of these particular methods. The other thing just to be aware of is that you might need to look elsewhere for some information. So, for example, you might need to go and visit local government websites to get information about the local government area that your organisation is servicing. There are some organisations, and one example is Women's Health Loddon Valley. So they have an office based here in Bendigo, but they actually service the entire Loddon Valley area. So you might want to go and visit, you know, the different local government areas that organisation services to see what that population actually looks like. You might get information from the ABS in terms of local government areas and again what the population actually looks like. Don't forget, you know, there are organisations like the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. There are both state and Commonwealth departments of health. You know, there might be organisations that you're visiting at a local level, but they also have perhaps a state or a national level as well. So they might have sites for their local or state branch, but also at a more national branch as well. So just think about some other ways that you can collect information for this particular assignment. The presentation itself, we're getting a lot of questions around, will I be presenting this in class? And the answer is no. There's no standing up in class to deliver this. We won't be playing these in class. It will be your facilitators accessing these via LMS and assessing them online. We expect that because this is a multimedia presentation, it's using different types of media. So we would be expecting you to use things like PowerPoint or Prezi, which is another presentation sort of a software program that you can use. You could use videos, photos. You might want to use some animations. There might be some, you know, news clips or media releases. There might be some sound bites that you can use, videos that are publicly available that you could incorporate. It really is up to you. You can be as creative as you like, or you can keep it fairly simple to like what I'm doing right now, which is, you know, a PowerPoint, and you can also see me as well. So this actually is an example of a multimedia presentation. There are a number of ways that you can record your presentation. So there's no reason why you couldn't record it using your phone, your laptop or any other mobile device. And you might want to engage the assistance of a friend or a family member to help you record that. If you're using your laptop, you can use your webcam to record. There's a program called Zoom, which you all have access to as students of the university, and Zoom allows you to record at your desktop, so using your webcam, but it also gives you a screen share function, so it allows you to put up a PowerPoint just in the same way that I've got this one displayed, but you can also see the presenter. So I'm actually using Zoom right now to record this presentation for you guys. And then the university also has the One Button studios on each campus, and students can book those and utilise those. So the One Button studios allow you to have a PowerPoint in the background, and you can stand beside that and record a presentation. There are instructions on LMS for how to use things like Zoom and the One Button Studios. So if you have a look at this screenshot that I took of our LMS site in the assessment folder, you can see here that there are instructions for using One Button Studio and Zoom. If you're using some software editing, to put together your presentation, if you've got those skills and want to use that or have a go at that, there are some instructions there depending on the type of computer that you're using. So that I'll have a look at those instructions for how to edit. It's not absolutely necessary to edit. You can just do a straight recording and upload without editing. And also we've put together some instructions on how to upload your presentation onto the LMS site. The one option is to use YouTube, so do your recording, upload it to YouTube, and then you could submit the URL for your YouTube channel, or you can use the OneDrive to submit your assignment as well. So I'd encourage everybody to have a look at the instructions for recording and for uploading as well. I think that covers most of the questions that we've had over the last week or two since we introduced this assignment. If you've got any other questions over the coming weeks while we're working on this, please feel free to submit them to the Q&A discussion board on LMS, and myself and the facilitators will be monitoring that. But also don't forget that you can run these questions past your facilitators in class. If they're unable to answer or unsure of what the answer is, they might come back to me first, and then we can get in touch with you. But we'll always endeavour to answer any questions that you've got. So for those of you about to go out and do your site visits, whether it's electronic or in person, I wish you all the very best, and I hope that you can really get to see some really interesting ways that public health principles are being utilised out there in the practice. So I wish you all the very best.